So um, it's not easy being green is already being sung about by Kermit the Frog. And being green is about being insignificant and not standing out for him. But it can also mean that you're new to a subject and or an experience, and that can make you feel insecure, and it's also not easy. Which it also can mean being green is being good to the environment. And as we know, that can be hard too, because what can little me do when all the big companies pollute? And so that's what I want to talk about. So what are we going to talk about? Why do we need to be green? And not in general, I do point that out a bit, but mostly in our work, because it's quite scary to know what we use and abuse in our work. Also, what can we do then? Why? What is all about, and also what's already being done? And then I hope that we can see that it can be easy to be green. So I'm Marjolein Pordon. Like Elena already said, I'm also known as Lady Low-Code. I work for Pfizer, a pioneer in low-code development in the Netherlands, but we have customers all over the world. And I'm senior quality consultant. So why do we need to be green? Well, we all know about carbon emissions and greenhouse effect, and we know we should use cars and phone less. But there's more in the world taking a large chunk of greenhouse gases and carbon emission, like a Rammstein concert. Looking cool, right? All the fireworks and the explosions. Well, it takes a lot of the environment, because one Rammstein concert produces 10,000 grams of CO2, which means it's the yearly emission of 10 households. And I'm not saying by this, because I have a few other examples, that we should not have things of fun. I do say, let's be aware of the impact and then make a choice if we do or not, do not want to continue with making that same choice. So if we look at Twitter's tweets, it produces daily 100 million grams. Well, I had found a infographic that said driving 1 mile with a car is 404 grams of CO2. So considering that, we could daily drive to the moon from the Earth with all the tweets we produce. If we look at the texts, it's 3 times. Google search, 7 times. Facebook, 13 times. YouTube, 62 times. And email, 12,000 times to the moon. And like I said, I'm not saying we shouldn't send emails, but consider the reply all button, or consider all the spam you get. Make sure that you block them, and all the commercial and newsletters that you do not read, also block those, because it will help reduce the CO2 emissions of using internet and IT. So I just mentioned a bit about the use of software and the impact of it, but what about producing software and keeping it working and available? Well, the energy forecast for 2030 is quite more than what we use now. Problem is, we do not have the energy that is asked, demanded in 2030. Already in the Netherlands, companies are not added to the electricity network or the water network, simply because we do not have enough electricity or water to spread over all the companies. So both software production and execution take up a lot of electricity. We need to think about ways to reduce those, because the demand is rising and we cannot live up to it. So I was a bit black and white, because yes, we demand more, and yes, we are increasingly using energy, but there are things being done. And I want to talk to you about what's being done on 3 levels. First of all, the worldwide level, governmental level. Then we have the big companies and we have the small, medium companies. So let's start with the big company. The United Nations have an environmental program called UNEP already since 1972. So last year they had their 50th anniversary. They have an environmental agenda. They work together nations-wide, but also individuals can join and lobby for things they think that are important. They have an annual World Environment Day, the 5th of June. So keep it marked in your agenda, because that's already in a little more than a week's time. Besides the UN, we have the Green Software Foundation. And the Green Software Foundation started with one person, Asim Hussain. He is the Green Cloud Advocacy Lead at Microsoft. He has 2 philosophies. Everyone has a part to play in the climate solution, and sustainability is enough all by itself to just justify our work. Well, sustainability, and he means environmental sustainability by itself, is not for everyone reason enough to do this. I will go into that later, but I do feel that everyone has a part to play in the climate solution. If I choose to fly to a conference on the other side of the world in America, just to be there 2 days and then fly back, I did consider that. After I became part also of the Green Software Foundation Speakers Bureau, should I do that? Or should I try to aim for online conferences where I do not have to fly to the other side of the world? So I do think that everyone has a part to play. And if we do fly to the other side of the world, for what reason, then whatever, that's okay. But I decided to make more thought over choices in this. So Asim Hussain started the principles of green. And then Microsoft said, well, Asim, we think you're right. And we start the Green Software Foundation. And Microsoft did not do that alone. They work together with Accenture, GitHub, Intel, Linux, and a lot of other companies. They have a manifesto, they have working groups, they have projects, they share resources on GitHub. This is really cool if you want code incorporated in your system to know what your energy use is, or you want estimations on how to make your code and your system more energy efficient. They have it already there free to use. And they have events. They had Carbon Hack 22. They were not announcing it yet for 2023, but it's a cool event. So if it's being organized again, it's definitely something you should check out. But then, like I said in the beginning, what can little me do? Well, the same goes for small and medium enterprises. And they figured, well, maybe 1 or 2 cannot do much, but if we are with 45,000 and we work together, we can do the same as the Green Software Foundation. So they are, in a way, the Green Software Foundation for small, medium, and enterprises. And they also have European money and support from the government. They have the same kind of thing, like working groups, projects, but also they give priority for small, medium companies to lobby, because they usually don't have the money to bring their subject to the government and to the big companies, and now they can because of those funding opportunities. And they have also a lot of cool events like the General Assembly, and also one you should check out. So these are 3 initiatives. But what does Green IT hold? Well, it is on one side the Green IT. We as IT should be green, so we should have less carbon emissions and greenhouse gases, and we should be driven in our development on what is our impact on environmental efficiency. On the other side, we can also, as we are already trying to be more green as IT itself, use that knowledge to help companies outside of IT to be more greener and environmental efficient. So both are important for green computing. Then I think if you want to change the world, and this is a free formatted quote of Mahatma Gandhi, you should start with yourself. And we can do quite a lot, because I think as the Agile team, as the development team, we are the jack of all trades. And we have the architects, and we should already start with the architect, because they can identify where energy can be reduced before even code is written. They can make it already about the design to make sure that we are energy efficient and know that we are green. Things like network trafficking, optimizing database queries, reduce complexity is all things that the architect can think about. Then the business analyst, identifying environmental impact by the workflows, the processes in the company. He can not only make the system and the IT part energy efficient, but can also see what our work processes have for impact. Then the designer. The designer can also help because, and I have an example for this. I worked for a big company in Holland with perfumes and shower products and things like that. And they have a really cool website. When Easter comes, when Christmas comes, it's full of movies and images, and it's really, really good website. You do not want to know the impact on the environment, because all that data asks a lot of the environment. So a designer can give advice how to have still the cool website, but with a less environmental impact. Then the developers, they can optimize their code for energy efficiency. It will also help the performance of the system. And by using caching, minimize database queries, using algorithms, it will require less computer power. And last but not least, the tester. The tester can test the energy efficiency, can monitor the dashboards that will tell you if your energy is increasingly bad for the environment or if it's better. And there is already also tooling, which I will tell more about later, that will help you with advisements on how to change it, but also that it can already do a check before your code is live. So what can we do exactly? Well, you can start with a life cycle assessment. I chose the one that's been handed out by ISO. You can have use the 5 pillars of sustainability. You can use the green soft model, and now I cannot see that, sorry, and implementation. And I will start with life cycle assessment. So the life cycle assessment is basically the cradle to the grave. And it will not only monitor your life cycle inventory, what kind of resources do you use, but also the impact of using those resources. Well, I have here a infographic. So this is for a desk, but it's also applicable to software. So for a desk, I will need wood and I will need to transport that wood. So that will cost CO2 emissions for cutting the wood and also transporting the wood, but it also reduces the carbon sequestration in forests because trees reduce carbon emissions. And if I cut trees, there are less trees to take up the carbon emissions. So it is a big output on CO2. And also the energy to manufacture the desk will take a lot of emissions. And If I then look at use, the use will not take up, in this case, any emissions. With software, it's different because data traffic, hardware use, all things will use emissions. So that's a different case. So in that case, you will not, but you can make it energy efficient if you avoid use of fossil fuel. Then the waste management. In time, the desk will be done. Same for software. And then you have the waste management. And the waste management also gives out energy emissions. But if we have enough nature and we use it as composting, or we do use it as landfilling, it can help nature again. So by doing this, you have an idea of what your system costs the environment and how you can reduce those outputs. Then the 5 pillars of sustainability. Like I said, Asim Hussein says environmental should be enough on its own. But let's look at economic sustainability, because with the high energy prices, you would have less expenses if you think about being sustainable. And as in the Netherlands, some mostly bakers are already bankrupt because they couldn't pay the energy prices. Economic sustainability should be one of the reasons why you want to be environmental sustainable. Also socially, because it will give you a better image if you are green. It's already a hot topic. People really want you to be green, and you will have more customers. Well, environmental, I already talked about, but individual also, because green IT and energy efficiency will be healthier, because all the green gases will make people sick. There will be more cancer in the years to come if we do not reduce our energy use, and also more airway sicknesses. And then we have the technical sustainability. And there I have, again, a nice example. I added a QR code to the research that I got this from, because I have a lot of people asking usually about research. So if you scan the QR code, you will get the PDF. Because Linus Torvald, I already said Linux is also part of the Green Software Foundation, says a lot of languages like Java and Python are far from energy efficient. But C is, and Linux uses C as their programming language. But Linus Torvald also says it's like juggling chainsaws on a good day. And Rust is also more efficient than Java and Python, a whopping 50% more than Java and a 98% more than Python. Yet is an easier language to program in. So we could also check a language to program in to see what is energy efficient. Then the green software model. It's a framework for integrating sustainable considerations and is practical for teams taking in considerations all phases of the life cycle that we already talked about. It also adds metrics and criteria to make sure that you are on the right road and stay on the right road for sustainable software. And it's also built on the 5 pillars I mentioned of sustainable software. The sustainable technical, individual, socially, and environmental and economically. We can make with this model informed decisions, and we need also therefore the free effects, because the first order effects are easy. With Corona, we saw that people were taking less business trips, we were working online. So that's the first part. the first effect of your decision. If you want to, like I said, be more energy efficient, and I want to be good to the environment, being green, I consider if I want to take a conference on the other side of the world. That's the first order effect. Is I do not go on conferences outside of Europe. I decided for myself. The second order effect is that by doing that, I lower the emissions for myself, because I'm not going to fly to the other side of the world. The third order effect is a little harder to monitor. That may be that if I talk about it, like I'm now talking with you, and I tell to other people, conference like Live2Test, which is online, it speaks to me because I do not have to fly, and I am all about being green. Then the third order effect may be that other people think, well, maybe I should not go to the other side of the world, or maybe I should try to have like 3 or 4 conferences at a time, so I only have to fly once to America and then can fly back after 4 conferences, things like that. So the third order effect is more, the first order effect is I make a ripple, I drop something in the water, and the third order effect is almost when the ripple comes to shore. Then the implementation. So how can we do this in our everyday work? I would say green in your daily routine. Well, for the way of working, you should have your life cycle assessment. You start with that, then you know where you stand, what does your workflow, your development, your system, your hardware take up on energy, and the cost, the environment. Because also the use of hardware, and if I have, what we see also with the customer that I talked about, with the very complex and very high demanding website. That kind of website asks also a lot of the hardware. If we make energy efficient software and we make our programs less demanding, we do not need as often new laptops, and also the resources for hardware, and the waste of hardware will be less. So with the lifecycle assessment, we will see that it's involving a lot of aspects of development, and it can gain us a lot for the environment. The green soft model will also help us to keep track of our goals, and to with metrics, and also see the effects of what we do. But in our day-to-day life with an agile team, we should add in our sprint null the product risk assessment with the lifecycle assessment. So what risks do we have for the environment? And again, I think not that we should do only things that are good for the environment. Sometimes you need to make other choices, but that's it. Make informed choices, and question those choices later on. Make sure that in the definition of ready, you add those sustainability goals, so that before a story will be picked up, you know that it's considered the sustainability goals. And the same for the definition of done. Before the end of sprint, you want to know that the stories and your software complies with the sustainability goals, and if not, that it's been an informed choice. And in the retrospective, you can question the choices you made, but also the choices and the sustainability goals you made earlier, and make sure that everyone is still on board, and that you still make the choices that are good not only for the environment, but also for your customer and your software. So besides that, I want to talk a bit about tooling. I do not mention names of tooling specifically, because I feel that it's very specific about the goals you need for the tooling. So I will be more high over. On the one side, you have tooling that will monitor your use of resources. And it will also measure your network use, your CPU, GPU usage, power consumption, and it will use your front end and back end. And like I said, it can also make estimates before you deploy. So if you have like a definition of done, which entails a scan with that tooling, your scan can say, well, this is within your sustainability goals or not. And then you can make, again, an informed choice if you want to bring that code live. On the other side, you have the monitoring of emission of CO2. So those are apps that convert your power use and resource emissions, and you even have them for your phone. I had one for a while, and I saw that if I used Instagram, that I could, with that use, ride a few kilometers with my car. So I started to use Instagram less, only if I wanted to see some stories of friends of mine, of coworkers of mine, but not just the endless scrolling. So there are apps that are more for the companies, but also for individual use. It can also measure and give you advice on how you can improve and minimize your emissions. And also it will help you track the resource of your energy, which I do find a bit tricky if they can really find the resource, the source of your energy, but they will try and help you find ways to use energy produced by sun and wind and water instead of fossil fuels. So again, what can we do? The life cycle assessment, the 5 pillars, green software, green soft model, the free effects and the implementation, and then we'll be as a team the green conscience of quality. So I think it is easy being green. It means your software is better, faster, and cheaper. If the time to interactive with your software is lower, it's better for the experience of the customer, but also for the hardware. Page weight, like I said, for that one customer of mine where I worked for, the lower the better. If I had an old laptop, it would slowly load, images and videos wouldn't work. Average service response time, the lower the better. It's not just better for the environment, but also for your software. The cost of your services will be lower because you have less need of servers. Your data will be, data transmission will be quicker. So all in all, it's not only easy being green, but it's also even better for your wallet. So again, we should want to change and start with ourselves. I'm really curious about what you think and what you already do. So in the Q&A, if within a few minutes, I would love to answer questions and also hear some comments. And if you want to know more, there are free courses by Microsoft and the University of Potsdam on sustainable software and sustainability in IT. And there's a bachelor course on the School of Data Science on the University of Amsterdam. So it's easy being green. If you want to contact me, you can find me here. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope to answer some questions.
Marjolein, thank you so much for being here and bringing such a valuable presentation into our table. So there is a question from Joel Oliveira. He asks, what's your take on AI like ChatGPT and their carbon footprint?
That's a good question. I get that one more often. Well, AI is important. It's hot now, but for the environment, it's really bad. It takes up a lot of data, transmissions, servers need to be updated. And like everything with data, I think that I read, because I read some research on it, everything written from day one that we written words and made books up until now is the data that we will produce every second in the next year. So every written word, that data, and everything that you do with ChatGPT, you add new data, because like now I shared with a QR code a research. If we put that online, it will be, or if we share it, it's again on data servers. So that one QR code that I shared, because people want to read the research on language of programming language, by sharing this, I already add a lot of data. Again, that's already in databases over the world. So we copy data every day, and with ChatGPT, we will do that also, and even incorrect data. So for now, AI is far away from energy efficient, but they know that, and they're also working on it. They are very cautious also with AI. That's also why they now have the covenant signs that we should not go too quickly with AI, because there's a lot that's not known about how to proceed with AI. And I think that's good. So it's good that AI is there in ChatGPT, but it also has a lot of implications, but wider than just the environmental. And I think that they are considering that, and that is good.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask a question related to prior one. So what can you suggest to people to decrease the footprint using AI? Because everyone is using right now ChatGPT and similar AI tools. So what can you suggest to make the harm minimum?
Well, think about your question. People say you need at least 5 pointers to give to ChatGPT to make sure, or related AI tools, to make sure they give you a sound answer. And if I can make it possible to make a question as specific as possible using those 5 indicators, it will help ChatGPT to form a good answer right away, instead that I have to ask 10 questions to get to the answer that I need. So if I want to know what research I should read on a certain topic, I make sure that I write another researcher that I think is really good, so that ChatGPT knows in what kind of research I'm interested. Make sure that I name some companies that I want to take in consideration for this research. The more help I give ChatGPT in my question, in my first question, the more leads they will have to give me the answer, and the less questions I ask, the better it is. So that's one thing I think that would help.
Okay, thank you so much.